This is the EVP Podcast.
Welcome to an episode of EVP Podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Ghosty McGhostface.
And I'm DVO.
And that's all that's here with us right now.
Unfortunately, Beaker is no longer with us. He's, as you see, we in remembrance, we have left his seat open. If you're watching on YouTube, we have left his seat open. Instead, he is 5 feet away from us. He's 5 feet away from us on a beanbag.
He's half departed.
He's heavily medicated right now, and he can no longer record. He came over in quite some pain. Ghosty helped him self-medicate, and he needs some time.
Some shaman stuff on him.
He's got something in his weenus, stuck in his weenus.
No, I don't.
He can maybe hear.
Makes noise. Sounds like he's dropping coins down a well when he's feeling pee.
I got the kidney stones.
He's got some kidney stones. He's known for his crystals and stones, not his kidney stones.
Well, he's making his own stones now. I bet you those have a lot of energy in them.
Oh, yeah.
You should try to collect those. I bet you those go for quite a bit of money.
It'd be rare. I only sell one for $1 million.
That's hilarious. Well, Beaker, we hope you feel well soon. Even though you're 5 feet away from us, you're here in spirit next to us.
I can feel your energy from here.
Don't touch my butt.
Oh, I've heard it's a man passing a kidney stone is pretty comparable to a woman giving birth, is what I've heard. His pain's pretty painful.
I'm so glad I've never had to, and hope I never do.
What's the worst pain you've experienced?
Worst pain I've experienced is probably
Heartbreak, I understand, but besides
the heartbreak.
besides going through 2 divorces.
Stingray.
Oh, a stingray.
Stingray was probably the worst pain.
Ugh.
That was rough. 4 hours of extreme pain.
Ugh.
It felt like if you had a broken bone
Yeah.
and then just kept messing with it. Just kept messing with it for 4 hours.
Oh gosh.
That's kind of what it felt like.
And the good old stingray took our good friend Steve Irwin. He was a potential huge fan of the EVP podcast.
He could have been up there with
Steve
Patrick.
Irwin would have been one of the biggest fans of the EVP podcast, but he's no longer with us, unfortunately. Probably the worst pain I had, two things. It was actually the episode that we had to bring our guest Lurch on because I couldn't come. I had a gout. What do you call it?
Flare up?
Attack. Feels like an attack.
Yeah.
I feel like someone had a hot knife and just jabbed me in the toe and was twisting. And then I've had lower back problems for years, and there was one that was pretty severe. I had to crawl around, and I was almost in tears. That was pretty painful. Getting old sucks, everybody. Just in case you're wondering where the moral of this story is going.
I had some of that gout pain. I know what that's like.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Stingray's worse.
Oh gosh, not fun. Well, Ghosty, what are we talking about this week?
So this week we are going to talk about the one exhibit inside Zach Bagans' museum that I was referring to earlier in another episode.
Yeah, even last episode when we talked about the Ouija board, we were kind of talking a little vague about what this episode would be about, but it's about this.
And let me see what her name is again. Lee Sober Shapiro.
Yes.
That's her name, and most people probably won't know who I'm talking about. It's the one where the exhibit is her sitting in front of a bunch of
Well, it's a mannequin.
Mannequin, yes. The exhibit, it's a mannequin sitting in a chair, surrounded by these speaker tunnels.
Yeah, they call them wells or wells.
And there's like inputs and outputs, and she's making these frequencies where she's communicating with spirits, and it almost seems like she's making spells or making some kind of equations.
And why do we not seem like we're very sure? Because it is hard to find information about this.
Yes, because there's not a lot of info on here besides what was told to Zach Bagans by the realtor that he purchased these items from.
Yeah, so I guess she died in the home around these machines,
So these speakers, and what had happened was it looks as if she had gotten possessed based off of what she was writing down, sounding like things are coming after her to take her soul and take her to the deepest parts of hell where she won't even have access to God. And there, it was like, and then she had these Polaroid pictures. This is the big thing. This was like, okay, her taking a Polaroid picture of herself, just normal with makeup on and looking like her normal self. Then the next one is like all kind of haggard looking. And the next one almost seems like she's like thinning away, and it's like
basically she's deteriorating before your eyes in these Polaroids.
Okay, and I was really intrigued when I first came across this when I went through the museum a few years ago.
And this, in case we got some youngins here, they're like, "What is a Polaroid?" So you might think
they're new again.
Yeah, but just in case, the Polaroid is a brand, but they're famous for their cameras that you would take the picture, it would come out, and you just kind of shake it like a Polaroid picture, and it would be an image that showed up like on the spot. You basically have a picture on the spot, and that's what these Polaroid cameras.
Millennials know what this is now.
Yeah, I know they may revamp. They have all these different colors, but just in case, it's not the most popular camera to use. Just by the way,
you're right though. So, based off of these Polaroids that she took of herself, it looks like she had deteriorated, and then it seems like she died soon after this was taken.
Was it a 4-hour time frame?
24 hours.
24 hour, okay.
It was a 24-hour time frame.
4 or 5 pictures.
The more I looked at those today as we watched, so we went and watched the episode of the quarantine episodes where they actually
Ghost Adventures.
Ghost Adventures, where they talked about this exhibit and they did some experiments on this exhibit.
Yes.
Now, it almost, and I'm glad we did watch that too, but because looking at the photos more now, it doesn't look like she deteriorated. Like, it almost looked like she just wiped her makeup off, and
I feel like her face looked like her cheeks started sinking in. Kind of looked like that. It looked like she started having more bone showing in like her neckline, clavicle area. It kind of looked like more bone structure was kind of protruding versus having a meaty.
But what I also was like, who knows that was a 24-hour period?
It's very true. And obviously Zach Baggins is just going off of what the realtor said. So the realtor said, they found her dead, surrounded by these machines she made. They were not speakers. They looked like speakers because they were these wells. There were these circular openings that were facing towards you like a speaker would. And I think that's probably why it looks like when you glance, you would probably think, oh, those are just 6 random speakers facing like you.
Those tunnels, if you have like a subwoofer at home, and they have some of them have like a taller subwoofer with like a little tunnel in them.
Yeah.
So it's those type of tunnels.
So I guess
and it's giving off like a white noise hum or something. It's almost. I wonder if it's like those bug deterrents. Those bug deterrent noises.
Very faint sound.
White noise that just kind of hums.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's what it sounds. I don't know.
Had to be there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you had to be there. Everyone that's been there's dead now.
And I don't know if they know like how this started or anything. I know Zach said that he reached out to her family about it. And they said they want nothing to do with these devices.
I guess she was I can't remember what type of line of work she did. But anyways, she started doing some paranormal research.
Okay.
And just got really heavy into it and started, I guess, found these ways of communicating. And was getting these messages. And somehow almost seems like she was going into like interdimensional. Almost like she was crossing some strange dimensional things by, I don't know, astral projecting herself almost, maybe. Who knows?
That's an interesting theory.
And these inputs and outputs she was doing, because what she had was these inputs where she was having these intents of things. Intent, and then the output was how she was hoping the outcome would turn out with the help of this item placed in the well.
Yeah, so she had this input, and it was just a small little opening, and she would write these spells, and I don't know where she got these, and that's what they were calling it, spells, because it was just a bunch of looked like, math equations or some writings mixed in. And
Yeah, it was a mix of equations and words.
Yeah, if you looked at it, you'd have no idea. In fact, no one knows what these are.
And it's her intent. That's the thing, is that it makes sense to her, 'cause she's the one that wrote it.
Yeah. So she'd put it just be on a little scrap piece of paper, just a little scrap of paper, and she would just kind of roll it up and put it in this little, what she called input well.
And I don't know what was in the outputs.
It was things that would, the input.
Well, I know what the intent was, how she wanted the outcome to be, was what was in the output, but what items were they?
Like a lot of books. Like one was the Necromancer book. I can't remember what else off the top of my head. I think there were some like tarot cards or oracle cards were in another one. Like not a stack, but maybe like a couple cards. Yeah. That's all I can think of off the top of my head that I remember seeing. I don't know what her intent was. Like I don't know what she's trying to communicate.
Or why
or see.
she kept doing it if she was afraid. If she kept saying that she was afraid of these things, or if she knew that they were gonna be coming for her.
Addiction. That's
be.
my opinion. It's like why does someone go back to an abusive relationship?
She also had a Ouija board next to her that she was also saying she was assumed to have been using to communicate.
Well, it was next to her, so I would assume so. Too.
Now, what I was saying about the whole 24-hour things, who knows that was 24 hours? I mean, what if she was so into this that she was not eating and not drinking and was just so into this that, and plus her age, she was up, like, I guess in her 60s.
In her 60s.
So, I mean, if these things played a part of it, malnourishment, looking the way she did, look malnourished, I mean, maybe she just wasn't eating or drinking and was just so into this.
Yeah, I don't know if she wrote any letters that were saying...
Also, maybe wasn't sleeping. Maybe wasn't sleeping either.
I don't know if she wrote any letters just saying, I'm going to take these Polaroids because I feel... And again, I don't know where they're coming up with some of this story, but she was feeling possessed, and that the possession was killing her, and so that's why
maybe she wrote this down. Actually, maybe she did. She did write this down, huh?
And she was documenting.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I didn't take the tour. You took the tour, so you went through there.
It's been a few years though, and I was like getting refreshed, and I remember. There was nothing about this. Like, you couldn't research anything about this. Still today, you can't research anything about this.
No, even today, we're trying to dig deeper.
The only thing about this is that episode and going on the tour.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And in this episode, again, this was the not the regular Ghost Adventures, but the Ghost Adventures Quarantine. It's a 4-episode series, I guess you call it. It was just called Ghost Adventures Quarantine, and it was 4 episodes, all taking place in Zak Bagans' museum. This was episode 3, by the way, because we had a hard time looking for it when we found it. It was in episode 3, and Billy, one of the Ghost Adventures crew members, he was the one that was in this room, and he was FaceTiming with Bill Chappell. Bill Chappell has created a lot of the devices that they've used,
and so they recreated it together.
Yeah, they actually hooked everything back up. These devices.
And they've been doing this for a year now. They said they've been working on it for a year.
And the other 2 members were in the next room. That was Jay and Aaron. They were playing with the Ouija board that Lee, Miss Shapiro, owned, and they were playing with that in the other room. And again, I don't know how much weight I put, me personally. This is DVO speaking. I don't know how much weight I put behind the Ouija board and them using it and the outcomes they were getting. But what was interesting is in the museum, there was a lot of loud knocking. And the first loud knocking scared Billy in the reenactment room of Miss Shapiro's devices.
Which was strange how that where that knock even came from.
Yeah, because he was alone at the time there, and he said the knock was so loud that it felt like some of the devices might vibrate the devices off the shelf.
He was exaggerating the shit out of that, but I mean, yeah, it was a loud knock.
It was dark, so it was maybe...
Yeah, I could see how that startled him, though. That was loud.
Sure, it was
loud. And I'm sure he felt the vibration.
And then later, Aaron and Jay went in the room next to him to play with the Ouija board, and they both heard knocks. They thought it was coming from the other room, both of them. So Jay and Aaron were like, "That's coming from your room, Billy." And Billy's like, "No, that's coming from your room." But they both heard these 2 loud knocks. Pretty significant. They're the only ones in the museum. They locked themselves down during quarantine of 2020 and did this. That's pretty interesting.
So I was having a hard time staying awake. What outcome was coming out of the Ouija board?
So in the input, Billy put in. Well, first when Billy went in there, he said, "Are you okay with us experimenting?" And they had an ovulus, and the first word that came out was "object."
Okay, I remember that.
Which, was it object? They object to it, or was it object? What type of object are they? It's hard to tell. There's double meaning with the spelling.
Good old English.
Yeah,
good old
object
English.
and object. And how ovulus works, if you're not sure, is that spirits are supposed to be able to find a
frequency that they can
a dictionary of words to choose from and choose. Again, I don't know how that works, or how valid that is.
There's what's a word? Not a dictionary.
Word bank.
Yes, word bank.
Yeah,
it's a word bank.
So it's interesting, and they got a few responses that it was pretty interesting, I thought. And yeah, I mean, it was fascinating. So what Jay did is in the input well, and again, it's just a little circular, almost the shape of a shot glass, actually. And what they did is they wrote this lady's name, and they actually, in the whole episode, they never discussed her name, and I don't know where or how people know it. It's Lee Sober Shapiro.
I think it was inside the exhibit.
Oh, okay. So he wrote her name on it. Again, it's a scrap piece of paper, rolled it up, put it in this little, they call it an input well, and really it's like the size of a shot glass, and is daisy chained to these, I think, 6 output wells. And again, it's just these circular openings that are facing you, and he put in his own name, Billy's name, and then Bill Chappell's name, and then another piece of paper that said Jay and Aaron's name. So these are the outputs. So basically, I don't understand how this works, but they put her name in the input, and so I guess they want
have her to talk to them.
Yeah, so I guess
that makes
what
sense.
Miss Shapiro was doing was she was creating these spells, and she was trying to talk to these spirits, or I don't know what she was trying to communicate with, and that's probably the scary part. Who knows what she was trying to communicate with, but they put her name in the input well, meaning they want her to respond, and the output well, meaning to somehow correspond to them. And on the Ouija board, it spelled out Jay's name. In the show, Jay and Aaron were not looking at the board. Jay was looking to his. Actually, Jay and Aaron are facing each other, holding the planchette of the Ouija board, and they were both looking to their left. So they were looking opposite of each other because they're facing each other, both looking to their left.
Okay.
So they're looking opposite directions. The planchette's kind of moving around. Spells out Jay's name. At one point, they said, "Do you want to?" I can't remember what they asked, and I said goodbye. And they said, "What do you want us to do?" And it spelled out die. And they said, "Who do you want to die? Like you died, or you want someone to die?" And it spelled out you, Y-O-U, you. So, interesting. Again,
while they were not looking at it,
they were looking at it during this time.
Okay.
When it spelled Jay's name, they were not looking at it. And then that's when Billy said, "Hey, just so you guys know, I put both of your names in the output well." It's interesting. All these devices, I don't know what Miss Shapiro was trying to do, but if she's documenting, saying I'm feeling possessed, she has these letters she's written, and then she's saying, these are Polaroids of me in 24 hours because this possession's killing me, and she's just deteriorating.
That's right. Okay, I remember all that now.
And these Polaroids were around her when they found her body, and these machines were all around her. I'm assuming they were turned on. And I guess the significant part is, if this is her realtor, I don't know. Gosh, the other question is who did find her?
Maybe family members or
Maybe
a
family
wellness
members.
check.
And did they notice? Because have they seen her recently and then noticed? Oh my gosh, she looks way different now. And then we look at these Polaroids of her. Like, how is this her? I mean, maybe that's where this interesting part comes from, because it is very mysterious. As I'm like playing this out in my head, is the family coming in? Are they have to identify the body, and are they seeing these Polaroids and like, wow, this is her within 24 hours? Like, wow, this is significant. This is not what she looked like a couple days ago when we saw her. I don't know the whole story because the family wants nothing to do with these machines. Like, you would think if they were to, if they found it, just like a con, they might say, "Oh, that stuff's worthless." But the fact that when Zach Baggins reached out to them to talk about it, they were like, we want nothing to do with these machines. Like, they were just adamant. It seemed as though they were adamant they do want nothing to do with it.
Well, either one, they're scared of them. Two, because of what they think might have happened. Or three, they might be like some kind of religious type of overzealots, people that don't want anything to do with the occult of any kind.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, a few options. Who knows? Who knows?
We'll never know. We'll never know.
And that's what's interesting about it, and it sucks because it's like we don't have much information about this.
Do you remember when I brought this up when I first went there, because I was so intrigued by this?
It is very intriguing, and I'm just digging into it this week. I saw when Zach Baggins personally invited us over to the museum to investigate.
Of course.
But and you were telling me about it, and it's a very intriguing story. But what's also intriguing is that you can't find information about this. It's almost like they're trying not to talk about it. It was this real estate agent that said, "Hey Zach, you want to buy this? This is pretty interesting
was
stuff."
It he reached out to Zach?
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, because how else would he have known about this?
Right. I mean, Zach said when the real estate agent reached out to me.
Yeah,
is what Zach said in this episode. But yeah, it is very interesting. It's fascinating, and I wish we could talk more about it. But that's also what makes this episode, I think, or this story very interesting, is we don't have much to talk about. This might be a short episode.
Mystery, because it is such a mystery.
It's such a mystery. Like, this might be our shortest episode because we don't have information. We can't find information besides this episode of the Zach Bag or the Ghost Adventures quarantine episode 3 of 4.
What are your thoughts on who she's talking to?
I mean, she's referring to it as a demon. I don't know if she's getting responses. She's talking about things that are in the solar system. She's talking about in not our solar system, in other solar systems. She's talking about these algen. I can't even remember what the word was, but just kind of finding some things I could find in Reddit. People have looked into this. It is a solar system, another solar system, some stars. I can't even get into it. I don't even understand it. It makes, in my ape brain, this does not make sense. It does not make sense to me, this stuff. I'm not an physicist, unfortunately. I wish. I mean, this stuff is so
You're not a rock scientist?
I'm not a rock scientist. What do you think, Ghosty? Like, what are you thinking about it?
That almost makes it sound like maybe she's could be communicating with maybe even alien outside of our solar system.
But I don't get how these things communicate.
I don't get that either. Or interdimensional. Who knows if I don't know. I don't even understand. I mean, okay, interdimensional. It sounds like a cool concept, and I want to believe that it's an idea. I just still don't fully understand it. There's a lot to that I still have a hard time grasping my head around.
Sure.
I want to believe it because I've experienced some weird stuff also and seen some weird stuff, but I have a hard time. It is just really, really hard. So in this situation, it almost seems like that is a situation where it could be interdimensional, and it could be maybe just possession, or it could just be addiction and no sense of time anymore. I
mean, we should lay out the way her room looked. I mean, her room. So she was on these little scraps of paper. She was writing. I'm gonna say quote unquote spells, because I don't really know what it was that she was writing, but she had all these things up in these notepads and also on her walls. She had all these things written up on scraps of paper that she had posted on her walls, like even poster size things that she was just writing down, like things coming to her brain. I don't know how these things were communicating with her. I don't get it. Like, I don't get. So in this episode, Billy was using the tools we use today. They were using Ovilus. They were using spirit boxes. They were using, these tools, these electronic tools that we use. And they were getting words. I think one of the things they asked was, "Who are you?" And it was just a capital L. And they said, "Oh my gosh, it's capital L," which is the first letter of her name, Lee. But they're using these devices that we use today. What was Miss Shapiro using? How was she was she wearing headphones and she was hearing things? Like, I still am not understanding what it is. And we should post this on our Instagram and Facebook page so you guys can kind of see what this stuff looks like. I don't get how she was getting these responses. It's super fascinating and super confusing.
And it almost seems like she was writing them down when she was getting stuff.
Probably it. Maybe she was getting more spells. Like, yeah, the rumor is that yes, she was going possibly interdimensional, and gosh, I don't even know what that means. I don't know what interdimensional means. Does that mean a spirit world that we don't know anything about?
That's the like interdimensional thing I was saying. Like, what dimension is she going to, or is she astral projecting? Even could she be astral projecting?
And tell people what astral projection is that maybe have never heard of that.
Well, it's the type where you are meditating and kind of sending your self to a different place. You're in your head. You're outside of your body and going other places. And
so you could be sitting here in the EVP studio. You're physically sitting here meditating, but you are spiritually in another place?
Yes. Yes. Sending yourself spiritually to another location. Having witnessed that myself with one of our members. You know who. I'll just do one of those so you know who. But experiencing that firsthand was pretty insane. Like, it was cool. It was really, really cool because it was like...
Why don't you talk about it?
It was in a residential location that had a situation with some spirits.
So where were you at?
We were at the house.
Okay, so you're at some random person's house that
contacted us on our old team. Our old team was there, and both myself and Beaker were there, amongst other members of our old team. And the situation came up where Beaker had called Brandy for her what she could see in the location we were at.
Okay.
Because he was having something going on. He was experiencing a spirit of some kind, and I was experiencing something else. And she ended up astral projecting herself from her home and came into the home that we were in and verified the spirits that were there.
Okay.
And it was pretty spot on with the spirits I had communicated. Like, not communicated, but like I had seen. And anyways, it was a really cool experience. And having been there and seen that firsthand was pretty amazing.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I've got I'll just say a friend of mine that he says he astral projects, and he goes to he lives here in Utah. He astral projects to a certain restaurant here locally, and this restaurant was on Ghost Adventures one time, and he actually tells me that he astral projects and talks to an evil spirit in the basement of this restaurant from his home, from his bed. And I've been trying to talk to him about coming on and talking about that experience.
That would be pretty insane.
The problem is what he does for work. He's just worried. And I told him, I said, you don't have to be on camera. We can change your name.
You can wear a mask. I got those face shields, and we don't have to give his name out.
Yeah. So I talked to him recently, so I'm gonna see if I can get him on here and talk about that a little bit more. I do find it interesting how a lot of people can do this astral projection. And I kind of find it similar when people talk about near-death experiences where they are looking down at their body in a hospital bed. And they're kind of floating above their body, and then all of a sudden they shoot back in their body and they wake up. And they see all the doctors around them and everything. That's kind of my first picture in my head when I think of astral projection.
And so when I hear about that, when I hear people like are leaving their body and seeing themselves down there like that, it almost seems like either one, they're about to die, and their spirit is like kind of disconnecting from their physical form, or they're almost like in a coma but being in that sleep state, they've almost like put themselves in a state of meditation almost, because they're
that's an interesting perspective.
Because they've been unconscious for so long.
Sure.
Maybe somehow their mind puts them in that different place.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden now they're able to roam freely, or not knowing that they're doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just based off of they're almost in this different meditative state, just because they have so much experience sleeping, and they're doing such a long sleep.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I never thought of it in that way. That is interesting, huh?
So, I don't know. Thoughts.
Yeah.
Shit in my head.
Well, I mean, what's your final results of and again, this might be one of our shortest episodes because we just don't have the answers. And I'd love for our listeners or viewers to dig into this and see what they find or what they think about the whole thing. But Ghosty, like final results, what do you think is happening to this lady?
I think just because the vibes I got from it all, like, I think she was definitely making some kind of communications.
So you think she was making real communication, not things in her head? Maybe she was kind of going a little cuckoo, but she was actually connecting with and communicating with something.
I think she was, but I also, but I don't know what her mental state could have been like either. Because of making this communication, it could have like drove her kind of a little cuckoo because she wasn't sleeping, or maybe she wasn't eating. Like I said, malnourished and no sleep. I don't know. But I don't know there was no there wasn't an autopsy done on her body.
Who knows?
And so it's like, okay, what was her cause of death? Like, if there was anything done to say, okay, she hadn't eaten in days, or she hasn't drinking water in days, or she hasn't slept in however long, and she had a stroke or a heart attack. Yeah. It's hard to say if it was actual possession, because if she was stroking out or having like a mild heart attack,
well, if
like she could have been feeling like, oh, what if this was possession? But no, it's a heart attack.
I mean, those make sense. If it was true, these polarized within 24 hours. I did notice a change from the first pictures to the last pictures. I felt like her face was and her cheeks were very sunken in. I felt like her neck got extremely thin, and you can start seeing in her clavicle area, like I said, you can start seeing more of her chest plate and
now imagine this, what you just said. Now imagine a 3-day period of no sleep, no food, no water.
Right.
And being stuck in this room for, now I'm just giving 3 days as an idea.
Yeah.
Now imagine 3 days of that happening with no sleep, and just thinking that's a 24-hour period.
Sure.
And what do you think that would do to your body? Yeah. And I think that could probably kill you.
And basically, she died from starvation or dehydration. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if she was on watching a clock and taking pictures then. Yeah, I mean, we may never know. Right.
I'm just giving out ideas of what could be, what ifs, because that's really all we have. Right. But it is very, very fascinating. Who knows if we'll ever have answers. Mm-hmm. But it was intriguing enough to where I wanted to do an episode on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd love for our listeners and viewers to check it out and tell us what you guys think. We'll try to post some stuff on our social media, and you guys can look into it and see what you guys can find out that we didn't. That'd be awesome.
Well, all right, we'll call that a show. We'll wrap it up now.
We'll wrap it up now. We'll go check on Beaker. He might be writhing in pain in his kidney area.
Let's go push some stones out of him.
Let's squeeze him out.
Yeah, let's squeeze him.
All right.
All right, bye everybody.
This is the EVP Podcast.